I've tested and tried the CS qualified lead model. It's definitely something that's more in vogue as we really have gone through the most recent period where there's been some right sizing within different SaaS companies. It's all about how do you create a value story for your internal CFO and how are you advocating for the value that your team brings. As you mentioned, marketing qualified leads. Everybody wants to claim some sort of ownership over the dollars that are being generated by the company. So everybody wants a piece of that pie. I would definitely say that as you kind of look at the CS business in general, it's different at every company. You have some CSMs who are very revenue driven and are responsible for new renewals and cross sells. I've definitely dabbled recently within, the relationship between account managers and CSMs where you have a hunter farmer type of technique. But really at the end of the day, like a CSM's role is to really water the garden, so to speak, make sure that accounts are healthy, because if they're healthy, then they become advocates and they expand. And that's what you really want at the end of the day. So in those natural conversations that you're having, there's ways that CSMs are actually identifying those opportunities and those leads, even if you're transitioning them over to somebody from sales who's ultimately executing on them. Now, what happens is when you kind of lose, maybe when you have an account manager and CSM, the direct correlation to those sales dollars, sometimes the value comes into question with the CFO internally. So what you really want to also identify is that X percentage of those expansion dollars were actually found or identified by the CSMs in general. And without that, that wouldn't have been a success. So it's again, kind of claiming ownership some of that piece of the pie. But I think that's what's really important and why it brings so much value and weight to those strategic QBR conversations, or when we automate the customer journey, but still have customer or human-led touch points. Is the result of that? X number of leads tends to come from that. We build X number of pipeline. Those are all numbers, whether we love to talk about it or not, because we're normally focused on the customer, matter to the board, matter to our executive team. So it's definitely an art. There's ways to it. Everybody's going to want some sort of different Salesforce, I would say, logic about who the account owner is. But I think if you go by who's created the opportunity and even set MBOs and even potentially make it a part of the comp plan that these CSMs have like a certain number of qualified leads that they need to identify, you'll actually see that the close rate is much higher than just like, kind of like, I would even say marketing obviously sells value, but you're just spraying opportunity, whereas these can sometimes be a bit more targeted. So I think that's a really interesting talk track to bring to your CFO.